In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 sales closing mistakes that you must avoid at all costs in your business. Let's get started and understand what are these 5 sales closing mistakes that you need to avoid. The first mistake you need to avoid is passive closing. What do I mean by passive closing? I've seen a lot of sales professionals and business owners who just share their sales materials with the customers. They share their brochures, they share their product catalogs, they share their company profile, or they share some samples with the customer, and they expect that the customer will look at these support materials and make a decision to buy and close the deal. This is a big myth, this is a big notion. If your sales materials could do the job, then the entire world would be closing deals just on emails or sharing brochures and catalogs. There is a human factor in sales that is extremely important. And if you don't honor that human factor, then you're going to be pathetic at closing deals forever. Do not be a passive closer. Be an active closer. Have a conversation. Remember, these sales materials are support materials. They are not the primary factor which will get the customer to make a decision to buy. So be an active closer. Don't be a passive closer at all costs. That's the first mistake to avoid. The second mistake to avoid in sales closing is closing too soon. Far too many business owners and sales professionals have been trained on this philosophy called always be closing. They keep saying that ABC, always be closing. And they say right from the start, my focus is on how I can close the deal with the client. Well, let me tell you, that's a notion. It doesn't work. ABC is a total bullshit philosophy when it comes to selling. If you don't understand what are the needs of the customer, what are the pain points of the customer, what are the problems of the customer, if you don't spend time in a sales conversation asking questions to the customer so that the customer gets clarity about what do they really want, and then you don't showcase the value of your product or service in a manner where you pitch the product or service and show the client how this product or service can fulfill those needs, fulfill those desires, solve those problems, and you try to close too soon, you're going to fail, my friend. You cannot shove down your product or service down the customer's throat and expect them to buy. Make sure you take the customer through a conversational journey where you understand their needs, desires, problems, where you establish their needs, desires, and problems by summarizing what you understood. And then you showcase your product or service in alignment with those needs, desires, and problems. And then you move towards a closing conversation. That's what works. Closing too soon fails. The customer stonewalls you. The customer does not trust you when you close too soon. So that's the second mistake to avoid. The third mistake to avoid in closing is closing with the wrong person. What do I mean by closing with the wrong person? Many a times I see sales professionals and business owners spend time in pitching their products or services to a person who may not be the right customer for them. And they spend their time pitching their products or services to a wrong person because that wrong person is easily accessible, easily available, and it's easy to get an appointment or a meeting or a conversation with them. And here's what perpetually happens when you pitch to the wrong person. When you're trying to close with the wrong person, the meeting always ends with them telling you, no, wait. I need to talk to my boss. I need to talk to my manager, or I need to talk to my spouse, or I need to talk to my business partner, or I need to talk to my father or my uncle or my aunt who's in the business. If your customer at the end of a conversation is telling you that they need to check with somebody else, it only means that you wasted your effort, my friend. It means that in the sales process, you didn't understand what are the stages of purchase, what are the steps of purchase, who are the stakeholders in the purchase. You didn't ask these questions in the initial stages. You just went all in and opened all your cards to a person who was easily accessible and easily available, assuming that you can impress them and close the deal. But when you went in to close, you realized you're closing with the wrong person. That's the third mistake to avoid while closing. Now, before I go into the fourth sales closing mistake that you need to avoid, I want to tell you that if you are a business owner, and only if you are a business owner, I want to close a deal with you right now. If you find value in the content that I am sharing with you, and you feel that this content can help you grow your skills, then I have a lot more to share with you. So here's what I'd like you to do right now. Only if you're a business owner, because I don't want to close the wrong person. I want you to click on the link mentioned below, which is of my upcoming live business success workshop. The business success workshop is a 2.5-hour training where I work with you on understanding and analyzing what type of business are you building. Are you building an owner-driven business, or a team-driven business, or a money-driven business, or a system-driven business? And then I share with you how you build a system-driven business which can be scalable and profitable. Now, if you feel this capability is a critical capability for you as an entrepreneur, then click on the link below, register yourself for my upcoming business success workshop. Do that if it's relevant for you. Now, moving forward, let's go to the fourth mistake to avoid while sales closing. The fourth mistake to avoid while sales closing is convincing, pleading, or pushing. This is a very common mistake that many sales professionals makes, and sometimes even desperate business owners make this mistake, where what they do is they start pushing the product or service onto the customer and saying, please buy. Or they plead the customer saying, my targets need to be achieved. Or they try too hard to convince saying, it's a great product, trust me, go for it. Or they go to the extent of forcing the customer saying, come on sir, you wasted so much of my time, now please, you have to buy this product. Ladies and gentlemen, the more you convince, the more you push, the more you plead, the more your prospect convinces themselves to not trust you and not buy from you. You know, somewhere, some people have this philosophy that you got to convince, you got to push, you got to be aggressive. That's when you can close the deal. Customers are not fools. People will not spend their money on your product or service just because you're pushing them and convincing them. People are always diligent with their choices with their money. So your convincing, pushing, and pleading attitude only reduces your reputation in the eyes of the customer and decreases your efficiency in closing the deal. So please avoid that at all costs. Which brings me to the fifth and final sales closing mistake you need to avoid at all costs in your business. And the fifth and final sales closing mistake is being Google, not being Zoozle. What do I mean by that? One of the biggest mistakes sales professionals and business owners make is they allow their customer to use them like Google and get all the information required. And I'm not saying you should not share information with your customer. It's your job to honor the customer's questions and answer them. But as you are answering their questions, you also need to generate commitments from them. Commitments about when are they looking at closing the deal. Commitments about what is their selection criteria of deciding who they will buy from. Commitments about what can you expect from them as feedback when you send them a proposal. If you are not taking commitments, then you're just being used like Google, and they're going to take all the information from you, but they won't do the transaction with you. So here's something that you need to keep in mind. In a sales relationship, in a sales conversation, let your relationship not just be of answering the questions of your customer throughout. You know there is a boundary. If the customer is calling you back again and again for repeated meetings and only using those meetings to gather information, then you need to decide, do you want to be Google in their life or do you want to be Zoozle in their life? And what do I mean by Zoozle? Well, Zoozle is an e-commerce startup that I am building right now, where we are helping manufacturers and wholesalers sell their products to the rest of India. So we want you to be Zoozle and get deals, do transactions with your customers. Don't just be Google for your customer. Generate commitments from them. That was a little ad break about Zoozle for all of you. So generate commitments from your customers. If you've spent enough time in that relationship, if you've nurtured that prospect, you've taken care of their needs, you've understood their requirements, you've presented to them ideas, it's your right to close the deal with such a prospect. It's your right to ask closing questions like, when would you like to buy? When are we signing the deal? When are we closing on this project? That's your right. Don't just remain Google. Turn into Zoozle for your customer and close the deal. So these are the 5 mistakes you must avoid in sales closing at all costs in your business. I hope you found value in this video. And if you found value in this video, then do the needful by clicking on the subscribe button of this channel for more such valuable content around business, and also share this video with your friends and attract them to subscribe to this channel as well for me. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.